Hello, today we are going to deal with the production of yeast and fungal biomass. We are also going to see the mushroom and spirulina cultivation. This module deals with the production process of biomass and of yeast and fungi. It also contains the content for explaining the cultivation procedure for mushroom and spirulina. Through this module, you will be able to understand the production process of biomass and fungi and yeast, and also the cultivation techniques of mushroom and spirulina. Yeast, we all know, it is one of the first microorganisms used by the human. Microbial biomass is a suitable supplemental source obtained from process in which bacteria, yeast and other fungi or algae are cultivated in large quantities. Fungi possess the ability to use more complex growth inputs like starch and cellulose. The nutritional value of mushroom and spirulina are extremely high, and they have been added as an additive in food products to convert them as value added products. On completion of this module, you will be able to understand number 1, the production process of biomass, the importance of nutritional value of mushroom and spirulina, applications of the biomass products in various industries. Now, first we will look at the production of yeast biomass. As we all are aware that yeast biomass is extensively used as human or animal protein supplement in animal feed or in human nutrition. The common strains used as single cell protein source includes Saccharomyces cerevisiae and Candida utilis strains. The typical microbial biomass products include baker's yeast and yeast extracts, where Saccharomyces cerevisiae strains are the host for heterologous protein production. The production process of yeast includes several stages. Now, when we take about the yeast production takes approximately 5 days from the start to finish, and it begins with the energy source for yeast growth. The source which are used for energy source for yeast growth include sugar beet and cane molasses, because the sugars present in molasses are readily fermentable. Yeast production also needs minerals, vitamins, salts for their growth, which are often added to the molasses prior to flash sterilization, which produces the mash that is used to feed the yeast as it grows. Followed by selection of energy source, yeast production starts with a pure culture tube or frozen vial of the appropriate yeast strain. This yeast serves as an inoculum for the pre-pure culture, where seed is grown under sterile condition before being transferred to a large pure culture fermenter. From the pure culture vessel, the grown cells are transferred to a progressively larger seed and semi-seed fermenters. These later stages are conducted as fed batch fermentation. In this, the yeast is fed with molasses, phosphoric acid, ammonia and minerals. At the end of the semi-seed fermentation, the spent molasses are removed and yeast is washed with cold water and held in a storage tank at 34 degree Fahrenheit, approximately 1 degree centigrade, before you inoculate the commercial fermentation tanks. These commercial fermenters are huge. They are up to 50,000 gallons in size, and they are the final step in the fermentation process. Following the addition of the seed yeast, there are some process to be taken, which includes aeration, cooling and nutrient additions. They are started to begin 15 to 20 hours fermentation. After that, these processes are being added. At the beginning of the fermentation, the liquid seed yeast, the additional water may occupy only 1/3 of the 1/2 of the fermenter volume. Constant additions of nutrients during the course of fermentation will bring the fermenter to its final volume. The rate of nutrient addition increases throughout the fermentation, and by the end of the process, the number of yeast cell will have increased anywhere between 5 to 8 times. During the fermentation, the temperature is usually kept at approximately 30 degrees centigrade, such almost 86 degree Fahrenheit, and the pH in the range should be of 4.5 to 5.5. Now, please look at the figure which shows the production of yeast biomass. At the end of the fermentation, the resultant broth we are getting is separated, washed with water and recentrifuged to yield a yeast cream, which is then cooled to about 7 degree, almost approximately 45 degree Fahrenheit. Cream yeast can be loaded directly into tankers for delivery to customers, or it can be pumped to a plate and frame filter press and dewatered to a cake-like consistency, which is crumbled into pieces and refrigerated. Now, please look at the picture which shows the commercial production of cream yeast, fresh yeast and dry yeast. This figure shows the production of yeast process by a company by Angel. Next, we will see the production of fungal biomass. Fungus, as we all know, it is a heterotrophic organism belonging to eukaryotes. It is occurring worldwide. There are nearly 70,000 species of fungi, including mushrooms, molds, rust, smuts, truffles and more else. Fungi, they are considered microorganisms because they fall in the category of those smaller than 1 millimeter, which is generally not distinguishable by the human eye. Among 200 species of molds are seen. Out of this, Aspergillus is the most important filamentous fungus, and the most common species of this genus is Aspergillus niger, which, like other fungi, requires an aerobic environment for growth. In submerged condition and during fermentation, the morphology of Aspergillus niger can range anywhere from pellets to filaments. Free filaments in the form of mycelia or single hyphae with conidiophores they occur. When the nutrient solution is mixed at high speed, they shear the hyphae from one another, while the pellets are formed under mild mixing condition. For citric acid production under submerged condition, the pellet form is preferred, while for pectic enzyme production, the filamentous growth is preferred. When the nutrient solution is not mixed, the fungi tend to grow at the liquid surface, forming a mat of mycelium. During the growth phase, the fungus develops tubular filaments known as hyphae, and these hyphae branch out repeatedly to form a mass known as mycelium. During this phase, the rate of production of biomass is exponential, that is, you are in the increasing mode. Citric acid production from this fungi is known to occur when the fungal growth is limited. This fungal biomass can also be prepared from the byproduct of other industrial product. One such example of a fermentation of fungi as a value-added processing is sugarcane ethanol vinasse. Now, let us know what is vinasse. It is a new term we are coming across. Vinasse, it has a high organic protein content, which is from the yeast cell, that could serve as an excellent source of nutrients to support fungal growth. As mentioned earlier, we know filamentous fungi require simple process for fungal biomass separation. Consequently, the fungal biomass production cost will be relatively low. Generally, fungal biomass has high protein content, almost 50% on a dry weight basis, and the main purpose of fungal process is applied to produce single cell protein for food and feed application. Regarding single cell protein, I have already given a module on single cell protein. Please refer to the module when you want to know more about single cell protein. Now, this figure shows a microorganism, Rhizopus microsporus alias Oligosporus. The figure which is in the left hand side is the organism which is grown at solid media, and the figure which is on the right hand side, namely B, is the microorganism which is grown at a liquid media. You can see a lot of morphological difference between the organism in two different medias. Now, all of you should be knowing what is Rhizopus microsporus. It is a organism belonging to fungal species. It is an edible filamentous fungal species And if you see the most important characteristic of fungi, number one, this Rhizospores microsporus is a food grade filamentous fungi. It is known as a starting culture for making a delicious, which is usually taken in Indonesia, known as temph. The second characteristic of this Rhizopus microsporus is it is a FDA, Food and Drug Administration approved fungal protein, and it has been classified by them as a biosafety level 1, which is not known to cause disease. Now, the third characteristic of this microorganism is that it is not associated with the production of any potential harmful metabolites. So, it is generally regarded as safe by US FDA. Regarding the fungi, the investigation for utilization of vinasse to support its growth showed better results, where this vinasse requires some growth conditions such as the vinasse concentration, pH, nutrient supplementation and sample sterilization. All these growth conditions should be properly optimized to get a optimal biomass. The fungal biomass, which is usually characterized as dry weight, was determined, and soluble chemical oxygen demand, shortly abbreviated as SCOD, was analyzed as a parameter to assess the efficacy or the efficiency of fungal process. How far this process is very effective in bringing about a good yield of fungal biomass. This is mainly evaluated by SCOD, soluble chemical oxygen demand. Now, let us look at a figure that depicts the experimental plan for fungal growth optimization studies. The figure shows those optimization studies. Using vinasse, the fungal growth was achieved at pH 5 with nutrient supplementation, and the yield was about 1.12 gram of biomass increase per gram of initial biomass with SCOD removal of 49%. The fungal growth and morphology in submerged fermentation depend upon a wide range of parameters such as what should be the cultivation media, what should be the agitation intensity, how much should be the shear stress. In general, pre-filamentous mycelia, mostly the suspended mycelia, they clump and they pellets. They are the three major fungal morphologies formed when cultivating filamentous fungi present in liquid media. Whatever the aeration rate you are giving in fungal cultivation, it directly affects the fungal biomass production in bioreactors. This figure shows the composition of vinasse derived biomass, fungal biomass, soybean meal and fish meal. Now, this composition is usually calculated in terms of percentage dry weight. If you see the crude protein, in vinasse derived biomass it is 50%, whereas in soybean meal it is 48%, whereas in fish meal it is 73%. If you calculate the crude lipid percentage, in vinasse derived fungal biomass it is only 6%, whereas in soybean meal it is 1%, whereas that of fish meal it is 11%. When we calculate ash in terms of percentage dry weight, the vinasse derived fungal biomass shows 4%, whereas in soybean meal it shows 6%, whereas in fish meal it shows 17%. So, this figure shows the vinasse derived fungal biomass, whether how much essential amino acid it possesses. It almost possesses 6 out of 10 essential amino acids. Okay. Now, look at the figure. The one color which is given is blue is fish meal. The one which is given in green is soybean meal. The one color which is given in red is vinasse derived fungal biomass. You can see a number of essential amino acids ranging from arginine, histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan and valine. When you compare these essential amino acids among the three biomasses, you can see the level of leucine and lysine is highest in vinasse derived fungal biomass compared to soybean meal and fish meal. And also you can see a similar trend in of phenylalanine in vinasse derived biomass. But you can see the lowest amino acid is tryptophan in all the three fungal biomass, and the intermediate level of amino acid is you can see both isoleucine and threonine and valine almost equal in all the three biomass such as vinasse derived fungal biomass, soybean meal and fish meal. Now, look into the production of mushrooms. So, as we all know that mushroom is a spore bearing fruiting body of a fungus which is known to grow above the soil or on its food source. They reproduce asexually through spores, and mushrooms are excellent sources for B vitamins such as riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid and minerals such as selenium and copper. Fungi culture is the process of producing food, medicine and other products from mushroom. Mushroom require different conditions for optimal growth. The mushroom growing technique involves many parameters such as humidity level, moisture content in the immediate atmosphere, temperature, substrate. So, the substrate what is in the growth medium. Now, let us see some of the steps in mushroom farming. Mushroom farming as it is, if you say, it consists of 6 steps such as it is divided into, these 6 steps is divided into 2 phases. The first step is the phase 1 compositing. The second step is the phase 2 finishing the compositing, spawning, casing, pining and cropping. The compost provides nutrients needed for mushrooms to grow. Now, let us look at the first step which is phase 1 making mushroom compost. Phase 1 compositing, it is initiated by mixing and wetting all the ingredients. The bulk ingredients are put through compost turner. Then you have to add nitrogen supplements and gypsums. After adding, it should be spread over the top of the bulk ingredients. After adding, you can see a pile is being formed. On this, aerobic fermentation it commences. How? As a result of growth and reproduction of microorganism. Mushroom compost develops as the chemical nature of raw ingredients is converted by the activity of microorganisms, heat and some heat releasing chemical reaction. This phase 1 composting, it may last anywhere from 6 to 14 days based on the nature of the material. At the end of phase 1, the compost must have number 1 chocolate brown color, have soft pliable straws, number 3 have a moisture content from 68 to 74%, it should have a strong smell of ammonia. Now let us go to the second step. Second step is almost phase 2 which is finishing the compost. There are 2 main purposes to phase 2 composting. Number 1 pasteurization which is heating at high temperature. You have known about pasteurization of milk in order to sterilize the milk. Here the pasteurization is used to kill any insects or pests. Number 2 conditioning the compost. What do you mean by conditioning? Where you are removing, I told you that strong smell of ammonia in the phase 1. Here you have to remove the ammonia formed during phase 1 composting. The concentration of ammonia should be less than 0.07% in order to facilitate mushroom spawn growth. This removal of ammonia, the process known as deammonification, is done at 125 degree Fahrenheit to 130 degree Fahrenheit. In phase 2, the compost is placed in beds or trays, or it should be uniformly filled in depth and density. The compost density should also allow for gas exchange because ammonia and carbon dioxide will be replaced by outside air. This ammonia from this composting will be released out, whereas the carbon dioxide will be taken in. So, that is the process which we are going to do in finishing the composting in phase 2. And this phase 2 composting is usually carried out in a controlled temperature, and it is a controlled temperature dependent ecological process which is very suitable for microorganisms to grow and reproduce. Through the phase 2 composting, the temperature always must be lowered to 75 degrees. It was actually 125 degrees to 135 degrees, but it should be lowered to 75 degree Fahrenheit to 80 degree Fahrenheit. And the nitrogen content must be 2 to 2.4%. Since you have removed ammonia, the nitrogen content should be anywhere between these 2 ranges. The moisture content must be between 68 to 70%. Let us go to the third step, which is spawning. During maturation process, mushroom produces millions of microscopic spores lining underside of mushroom cap. This mycelium can be propagated vegetatively from germinated spores, which is used by spawn makers to multiply the culture for spawn production. Spawn making process begins from sterilizing the mixture of millet grain, water and chalk. After sterilization process, a bit of mycelium is added to it. The grain and the mycelium are shaken 3 times at 4 days interval for a period of 14 days. The colonized mycelium on the grain is called as spawn. Next, we go to the next step, which is casing. What is casing? Casing is a top dressing applied to a spawn, which run compost on which mushrooms develop eventually. It does not need nutrients because it mainly acts as a water reservoir to help rhizomorphs formation. Casing must also be able to hold moisture. The main functions of casing process are: number 1, supplying water to mycelium for growth and development; number 2, protecting the compost from drying; number 3, providing support for developing mushrooms; number 4, resisting structural breakdown following repeated watering. The compost temperature must be always kept around 75 degree Fahrenheit for up to 5 days after casing, and the relative humidity must be high. Next, we will see what is pining. Pining is nothing but the rhizomorphs are formed as a result of casing process. We all know that. The initial structure formed is extremely small in size, and when an initial structure quadruples in size, the resulting structure is called as a pine. They still continue to grow and expand from button stage and ultimately form the mushroom. Harvesting mushrooms appear 18 to 21 days after casing with carbon dioxide content less than 0.08% in the air. It is a best practice to ventilate as little as possible until the mycelium has begun to show at the surface of casing, and to stop watering at the time where pines are formed. Pining is a significant step in the production cycle because it influences the potential yield and quality of the crop. The last step in mushroom farming is cropping. The last step is cropping. What is cropping? The harvest periods are termed as flush, break or bloom, and it is a repeating 3 to 5 day harvest cycle in a rhythmic fashion. Most mushroom farmers harvest for about 35 to 40 days, although some harvest a crop for about 60 days to 150 days. Air temperature during cropping must be held between 57 degree to 62 degree Fahrenheit for good result. Now finally, we will now look into the cultivation of spirulina. You should be knowing spirulina is a cyanobacterium which has application in feed industry for humans and animals. Dried spirulina contains 60% protein. It is a complete protein containing all essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are those which cannot be synthesized by our body. So these amino acids which is required for our growth or for our human body should be got only from the diet. Now let us discuss about the production process of spirulina. The liquid used for the production of spirulina, it is a solution of mineral salts in water. The pH of the liquid medium should be between 8 and 11. The temperature of the culture medium has a direct influence on the growth rate of the spirulina. Optimal temperature suitable for spirulina growth is almost from 35 to 37 degree centigrade. The sharp changes in temperature are sometimes very disastrous. A very strong light, if you have full sunlight, can also be dangerous, which affects the growth of spirulina. When temperature conditions are good, a spirulina culture can benefit from being exposed to a maximum of natural light. The essential part of growing spirulina is the agitating the growth culture time to time, about 2 to 4 times a day. This process ensures even spread of the spirulina in liquid media and its exposure to the sun. The culture medium and tank need to be protected from contamination by foreign algae, insects or any toxicity. Also, the level of the pond and the amount of nutrients needed to be maintained by regularly replacing the fertilizers and water. When we look into the steps involved in the production process, the most important critical step is in spirulina cultivation is seeding of the tank and growth control. Measurement of spirulina concentration, how do we do? The concentration of the culture can be gauged by the intensity of the color, for which a special disc is used known as Secchi disc. It consists of a graduated ruler at the end of which a small white disc is attached perpendicularly. The instrument will be submerged in the water to the point where the disc stops being visible. The depth of the disc is then read off and graduated ruler. Now you can see of your figure how the CT disc appears, how you can go for placing the CT disc inside the spirulina cultivation tank, how you can go for light penetration with low algae content and also go for a light penetration with high algae content. The culture is diluted if the CT disc remains visible beyond a depth of 5 to 6 centimeter. A value of 2 to 3 centimeter shows that the culture is ready for production. In good conditions, the amount of spirulina present in a culture doubles every 2 to 4 days until it reaches maximum concentration. Almost the CT should be less than 1.5 centimeter. If the culture concentration is around 2 to 3 centimeter mark on the CT scale, harvesting could be done. Now, let us look at the advantages of spirulina farming. The first advantage is it can be produced locally and has social and economic benefits. The second one is it is very cheap to produce. Third one, it uses simple technology and locally available materials. The fourth one, it requires much less water to grow. Fifth one, it can be combined with other products and used as an accepted food product all around the world. The next one advantage is it is very effective, contains almost most essential micronutrients in high concentrations. It is very easy to digest, and the last is very safe. This spirulina cultivation also has got some disadvantages. When we look at them, number one, initially more expensive, cumbersome to implement than food fortification program. Second, to cover initial investment, subsidies may be required. It does not combat iodine or folic acid deficiency. So today the module we have seen yeast biomass production, fungal biomass production, mushroom production and spirulina cultivation. To conclude this module mainly focuses on the production of yeast and fungal biomass and cultivation of mushroom and spirulina. The application of these products showed the potentiality which is because of high nutrient content in the products. The main use is that all these products acts as an effective nutrient supplement in human food or animal feed. In future, genetic engineering might also help to increase the yield of the product to a greater extent. More studies have to be done to increase the production rate of the supplements with low cost so that these supplements are available to the people in cheap rate and also in abundance.